What is up, guys? This is QRem from the Trinity of Lift, and today I'm going to bring all of you guys my Darklord deck profile for this January 2017 format. Now then, this deck has taken me quite some time to finally put in the time to actually film the video because I've had some real life things to attend to, and with each thing that I've had to do, it just keeps pushing this video more and more back. But finally today, I'm here to bring all of you guys this Darklord deck profile. So without further ado, we're just going to jump right into it, starting off with the main deck as per usual. Alrighty, so to start us off with the Darklords, we have, of course, 3 copies of Darklord yugioh because she's just like the best one. You have to run 3 copies of her because she helps you cycle through your deck really fast. She helps you get specific Darklord cards into the graveyard as well, and her Darklord monster effect is, again, shared between pretty much all of the new Darklord monsters, and it's just a really good either player's turn effect, which can either get you more advantage or it can be also a very good form of disruption as well. So we have 3 copies of yugioh because she's just really good and you want to see her as much as you can. Then we have 3 copies of Nastin. Now, Nastin is kind of similar to yugioh in the sense that he can also help you fuel your grave, but he does it in a more extreme way where he dumps 2 Darklord cards from your hand. Now, the thing is with Nastin, you do still want to run 3 copies of him because he is another good name with and he's also another Darklord with that very good monster effect of his. But the thing is with Nastin, you still usually will only be using him for either an alert target or an yugioh target because usually you only kind of want to dump traps with Nastin's monster effect in hand, but still though, you still have to run 3 copies of Nastin because again, that name is again really important and he just has the ability to be a really good monster that you can summon from the grave as well. So again, we have 3 copies of Nastin. Then we have 3 copies of Superbia because Superbia is just, again, one of those cards that helps you just gain a lot of advantage. Being a level 8, he allows us to run trade-in, so we have another form of consistency in this deck. And also the fact that Superbia gets you another monster when he is summoned from the graveyard as a +1 is really good and can help you make rank 8s as well. So again, we have 3 copies of Superbia because he's really good. Then moving on, we have 3 copies of Darklord Zeratul. Now, Zeratul is a little bit weird in the sense that you don't run him at 3 because he's good per se. You run him at 3 because, first of all, he's another level 8, so it makes trade-in more consistent. And you also run 3 copies of Zeratul because you kind of want to see him to get into the grave with a Superbia. So when you revive your Superbia with one of your revival effects, you can use Superbia's effect, summon Zeratul from your graveyard, and then make a rank 8. So you kind of only run him at 3 because you kind of want that rank 8 fodder. But still though, having 3 copies of Zeratul also kind of lets you use the monster effect occasionally. Like, you're not going to be activating Zeratul's monster effect on board all that often, but it can come up sometimes as well, so just having the option is never bad either. So we have 3 copies of Zeratul. Then finally, for the last Darklord, we have 1 copy of Amdusk. Now, I don't like Amdusk, I'll be straight, but the thing is, you kind of want to have at least 1 copy of Amdusk in your deck because sometimes your hands can just be so bad where even if you have an yugioh in hand, you can still break. So having Amdusk as a sort of second copy of yugioh during your same turn can really be helpful because, again, just being able to ditch more Darklord cards to your grave is never bad. And the fact that Amdusk can also help you recycle important cards like your Darklord Contact or maybe an yugioh, in my opinion, you still have to just run him at 1 for those situations where he can help you, again, unbrick your hand even further. So we have 1 copy of Amdusk to round off all of the Darklords. Moving on to the other monsters, we of course have, in my opinion, the win condition of the deck. We have 3 copies of Vanity's Fiend because, like, in my opinion, I don't like Arclert Christia. I've been testing different ratios of Vanity's Fiend and Christia for quite some time, and I've just settled on having 3 copies of Vanity's Fiend because he's a lot easier to summon, and in my opinion, he's a lot less gimmicky than how Christia would interact with this deck. So because of that, I just decided to just run 3 Vanity's Fiend to have as much consistency and as less brickiness, I guess you could say, as possible. So yeah, we have 3 copies of Vanity's Fiend. Then finally, for the last couple of monsters, we have 3 copies of Terratop and Attackentumborg. Now, to touch up on this engine really fast, the reason why I like this engine in this deck is because of how the Darklord deck innately works. The deck works as an engine. It doesn't work really as like a ton of just good independent cards that can do things, as a lot of your Darklord cards need other cards or other conditions to make them work well. But having the Terratop engine in this deck gives the deck another consistent way to just have independent good cards, as Terratop by itself can either help you unbrick hands by milling cards with Dante, or you can use Terratop to make Totem Bird to give you another disruption option. So just in general, just having another good independent consistent card in this deck is really helpful. So yeah, we have the Speedoid engine. And then finally, for the last 2 monsters, we have 2 copies of Maxi because to just follow the theme of drawing a lot of cards, Maxi helps you draw cards and helps you punish your opponents. So again, we have 2 copies of Maxi because it's really good. Alrighty, so that will be it for the monster lineup. Moving on to the spells, we of course have 3 copies of the Rhoda for this deck. We have 3 copies of Banishment because, you know, consistency. Yeah, consistency is pretty important. Also, the fact that like all of the new Dark Lords, they have that either player's turn shuffle ability. The fact that you can also turn all of your Dark Lord monsters into Stratoses is pretty hilarious as well. And again, it just helps you with that consistency, which is this deck's probably this deck's biggest weakness. So you have 3 copies of Banishment. Then we have 3 copies of Contact because this is the monster reborn for this archetype. And just again, having Contact here to revive Superbias, which can then revive other monsters, is really, really good. And usually your big explosive plays per turn are going to involve Contacts. So you got to have 3 copies of this card as well. Moving on, we're going to go into the drawing cards of the deck. We have 3 copies of Trade-In because, again, getting Superbia and Zeratul into the grave to help for either rank 8 plays or tribute fodder or just more monsters in general is really, really good. And then we have 3 copies of Allure because this helps get rid of bad cards in your hand, maybe like extra Vanity's Fiends, Cloggy Nastins, and all that kind of stuff. It just helps you accelerate through your deck and just help you make the deck a little bit more consistent. So yeah, we have 3 of these cards. Then finally, for the last 2 spells in the deck, we have 1 copy of Soul Charge and 1 copy of, excuse me, I threw it around, 1 copy of Upstart Goblin because, again, we have 1 just blowout card and then 1 card for a little bit more consistency. So yeah, that will be it for the spell lineup. Moving on to the traps. Now, the traps are just 4 copies, or not 4 copies, 4 traps, excuse me. We have 2 copies of Rebellion and 2 copies of Enchantment. Now, the thing is, the reason why I like 2 copies of each trap is because, in my opinion, the trap cards in this deck make your Dark Lord monsters on board actual threats. As sure, even if you don't have traps in your graveyard, the Dark Lord monsters can at least help you get advantage by shuffling back contacts or banishments. But in my opinion, the real way that you want to play this deck is a more stunny, more control-y kind of deck, and the trap cards really help you achieve that goal. But the thing is, you don't really ever want to commit your searches to the Dark Lord traps. You usually will be wanting to search yugioh or Contact or maybe a Superbia to get into the grave or something like that. And you don't have enough search power in this deck to make searching the traps viable. So because of that, you have to, in my opinion, run 4 copies of the traps because you need to draw them in order to get them to the graveyard, essentially, because again, you'll be searching other things usually. So that is why I decided to run 2 copies of each trap because again, you just want to see them a little bit more often so you can get them into the grave and make your Dark Lord monsters on board just that much stronger. So yeah, that will be it for the entire 40 card main deck. Moving on to the extra deck. Like, this extra deck is really flexible, I'll be honest. You can run a lot of Cherries targets in this extra deck if you have Ghost Reaper. You can run a lot of other options if you so choose. This is just the extra deck that I feel comfortable with. So for the rank 8s, we have 1 copy of Hope Harbinger because he's really, really good. We have 1 copy of Felgram because in my opinion, this is like one of the best cards to make against Paleozoics and stuff because they have a really hard time getting around this card actually. So this card is pretty good for certain situations. We have 1 copy of Lancelot to help you steal games. Then for the rest of the rank 8s, we have, or I guess you could say rank 8s, we have 1 copy of Cypher Dragon because stealing your opponent's Xyz monsters is pretty hilarious. And then we have the 2 Galaxy Eyes monsters to go with the Cypher Dragon because again, stealing your opponent's monsters and then putting something over it is pretty freaking hilarious. So yeah, that'll be it for these guys. Moving on to the other Xyz monsters of the deck, we have 1 copy of Big Eye for the situations where you do get 2 Nastin on board. Now, this doesn't happen all that often, but it might come up every so often, so just having it of rank 7 that you can make if you feel like it is pretty good. Then for the really big Xyz monsters, we have 1 copy of number 81 and 1 copy of Gustav Max for the rank 10s. Because again, there are going to be times when you can potentially get 2 E-shells on the field. And if you can, then you can make these guys as your rank 10s and just do really cool stuff with them. For the other cards, we have the Spiders because, again, just having the ability to use yugioh to make these cards is pretty good. And I also should mention something really fast in the sense that Pain Gainer can be made over any rank 8, 9, or 10 Dark Xyz monster. And if you look closely, Dark Matter is a Dark rank 9 and Lancelot is a Dark rank 8. So technically, you can also use those 2 cards as materials for Pain Gainer, and then you can use those to go into 7 Sins if you need to, just as, again, another option. So you can technically make these 2 cards as a rank 8, I guess, if you ever feel like you need it. So yeah, we have the Spiders. And then for the Terratop rank 3s, we have one copy of Dante because he can help you unbrick hands sometimes. We have one copy of Totembird because, again, more disruption is never bad. And then we have one copy of Breaksword. Now, I would like to mention something really fast with the Breaksword, actually, that similarly to how it functions in Metalfoes, where you can use Breaksword to blow up your own combinations to get more advantage, you can also use this card to essentially destroy dead Darklord traps in your hand by setting them first, destroying them with the Breaksword effect, destroying a card on your opponent's side of the field, and then getting a trap into your grave for future use. So again, in my opinion, Breaksword is also like really good at the utility aspect of this deck. So you gotta run Breaksword in my opinion. So yeah. That will be it for this entire Darklord deck profile. Now, if you excuse me, I'm gonna grab all of the stuff so I can get it right back into frame. So yeah, this deck is actually a lot of fun. I know it can be a little bit pricey as of right now because I do believe that the E-shells are still like hovering around $30 and the Nastins are like $13. So this deck is not cheap. But if you're like me and you do have quite a bit of pocket change that you can spend and you want to have a fun deck to just play while you wait for Zodiacs to come out in the next month, I would definitely try Darklords because in my opinion, this is one of the most fun decks I've played in recent memory. So yeah, as always, I hope you all very much enjoyed this video, and as usual, this is QRem from the Trinity of Lift, and I'll see all of you guys later. Peace out.